Thursday nights are supposed to be quiet. That's what I kept telling myself as I sat at my desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard, the blinking cursor mocking me. My manuscript sat half finished, and my mind was blank. Then I heard her voice. Ryan. No, he doesn't know. I froze. My fingers stopped tapping. The walls in our apartment were thin, and Sophie's voice carried from the kitchen. I leaned back slightly, ears straining. He still thinks I believe in his book, she whispered, followed by a soft laugh. I just wish he'd give up and get a real job. My stomach tightened. My throat felt dry. I wanted to move, to interrupt, but my legs wouldn't listen. Ryan's name left her lips again, muffled but clear. My best friend. I swallowed hard, stood, and walked into the hallway as casually as I could. Who are you talking to? I asked, forcing my voice steady. Sophie turned instantly, phone pressed to her ear. Oh, just Riley, she said smoothly, smiling faintly. I stared at her. Riley? At 11:30? She nodded too quickly. Girl talk. You wouldn't. Get it? I forced a laugh. Yeah, sure. Inside, I was shaking. I went back to my desk and stared at the laptop. The words on the screen blurred. My chest burned, but I stayed silent. A few minutes later, she walked in, leaning against the door frame. You're still up? Thought you'd be asleep? Couldn't sleep? I muttered. She sighed softly, crossing her arms. Ethan, you're stressing yourself over this book again. Maybe just take a break. Get a stable job. Could use the money. I looked up at her, forcing myself to meet her eyes. You don't believe in me, do you? Her brows furrowed. Of course I do. I'm just being realistic. Realistic, I repeated, the word tasting bitter. She walked closer, touching my shoulder lightly. I just want what's best for us. I nodded slowly. Right. But inside, I couldn't ignore what I'd heard. Later that night, she fell asleep quickly, her breathing steady and soft. I sat by the window, staring out at the city lights, the glow painting faint shadows on the walls. My phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. Can't hang out tomorrow, man? Busy night? I stared at the screen until it dimmed. I typed back, no. Problem. But it was a problem. A big one. The next morning, Sophie hummed in the kitchen while making coffee. Acting like nothing happened, I sat at the counter, watching her stir sugar into her cup. Late call last night, I said casually. She didn't look up. Yeah, Riley needed advice. I sipped my coffee slowly. Do you know what's funny? Riley texted me around 10, saying she was already asleep. Sophie paused for half a second, just half, before smiling without turning around. Oh, must have been after that. I studied her carefully, every detail of her expression. Every flicker of her eyes. You sure it wasn't Ryan? I asked finally, voice even. Her spoon clinked against the mug. Why would I talk to Ryan? I shrugged lightly. You tell me? She turned, leaning on the counter now, arms crossed defensively. Ethan, if you're going to start throwing accusations around, maybe you need to think about why you're insecure. I laughed under my breath. Insecure, right? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I'm serious. You're imagining things. I looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Maybe I am. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. Good. Can we not fight about nothing? I forced a smile. Sure. But deep down it wasn't nothing. It was everything. That night, after she went to bed, I stared at my unfinished manuscript again, hands trembling slightly over the keyboard. I wanted to write, but the words wouldn't come. My head was too full, my chest too tight. I closed. The laptop gently leaned back and whispered to myself, she doesn't believe in me. Neither does he. For the first time in years, I felt completely alone. Ethan, you're overthinking again? Sophie said, standing by the door with her bag slung over her shoulder. Don't make drama where there isn't any. I leaned against the kitchen, counter arms crossed. Late nights, locked phone, short answers. But yeah, sure, I'm overthinking. She sighed, rolling her eyes. I was at work. Again, you know that thing you keep forgetting about while chasing your book dream? I stared at her. So I should just ignore the calls I hear at midnight. Her hand froze on the doorknob. For half a second, she hesitated, then turned with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm talking to Riley. End of story. Right. Riley, I let the word hang there, sharp. She frowned, adjusting her bag. You're exhausting sometimes, you know that? Trust me or don't, but stop acting like I'm sneaking around. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. And if I'm right, her eyes hardened. Then you're not. With that, she walked. Out, slamming the door behind her. That evening, I sat on the balcony, nursing a flat beer when my phone buzzed. Daniel? Yo, I answered. You home? His voice was unusually low. Yeah, why? Meet me at Murphy's bar in 20. Don't ask, just come. I hesitated. What's this about? There was a pause. It's Sophie. My chest tightened. Daniel, just get here, Ethan. He hung up. Murphy's was dim, noisy, and smelled like stale beer. But Daniel sat in the farthest booth, 2 bottles already sweating on the table. He waved me over. Sit. I slid into the seat across from him, my knee bouncing unconsciously. What's going on? He shoved one of the beers toward me, but didn't touch his. Before I say anything, I need you to promise you'll stay calm. Not exactly helping my nerves, man. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. I've been sitting on this for weeks, hoping it wasn't what it looked like. But it is. I leaned forward. Say it. It's Sophie and Ryan. The words hung heavy in the air. I didn't breathe. What about them? Daniel exhaled sharply. I saw them, Ethan. Together, at the Edge Cafe, a couple nights ago. Holding hands, laughing. I thought maybe it was innocent, so I didn't tell you right away, but... My voice cracked, despite me trying to steady it. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then slid it across the table. A photo. Filled the screen, Sophie, smiling. Ryan's arm draped casually around her shoulders. For a moment, I couldn't hear the noise of the bar. It's just the blood rushing in my ears. I set the phone down carefully. And you're sure? Daniel nodded. Slowly. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. I stared at the scratched wooden table. Ryan, I muttered. My best friend. Daniel hesitated. I didn't want to tell you, but you needed to know. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice. Steady? Does anyone else know? No, and I didn't tell Sophie I saw them. She doesn't know I'm here. Good, I said flatly. Daniel leaned in, lowering his voice. Ethan, I get you're pissed, but don't do anything stupid. Laughed dryly. Stupid? Like trusting them? He sighed, rubbing his temples. Look, I know you're wrecked right now, but you've got options. Confront her, confront him, or walk away. I finished for him. He nodded. Yeah, I stared at my untouched beer. Do you know what hurts more than them screwing around? Daniel looked up cautiously. What? That she didn't believe in me? I whispered. That she laughed about my book? With him, Daniel's face softened, and proved them wrong. By the time I got home, Sophie was on the couch scrolling through her phone, pretending nothing was wrong. She looked up with a smile. Hey, you're late. I stood by the doorway, keys still in my hand. Where were you tonight? She blinked. Work. Why? I nodded slowly. Work, right. Her eyes narrowed. What's your problem now? I stepped closer, holding her gaze. If I asked you straight, if I said I know about you and Ryan, what would you say? For the briefest moment, panic flashed across her face before she masked it with indignation. Excuse me? You heard me? She set her phone down carefully. Ethan, you've lost it. Ryan's like a brother to you. Do you hear yourself? Right now? Do you? My voice cracked despite my best effort to sound calm. She stood, crossing her arms tightly. I don't know what Daniel's been feeding you, but this is ridiculous. I froze. Daniel? Her lips tightened. I exhaled slowly, forcing my expression blank. I'll ask you once. Just once. Are you cheating on me with him? Silence. She didn't answer. Her silence was louder than any confession. I grabbed my jacket from the chair. Where are you going? She demanded, her voice rising. Out, I said quietly, opening the door. Don't wait up. And I left not because I had a plan, but because if I stayed another second, I'd break. I stared at Daniel's phone again, the image blurring no matter how many times I blinked. Sophie, Ryan, her hand in his, her head against his shoulder. The same laugh she used to give me. My voice came out hoarse. How long have you known? Daniel hesitated. A few weeks. I wanted to be sure before I cut him off. Weeks. Winced. Ethan, don't, I said, pushing his phone back toward him. Back. Don't say anything else. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping the floor. Where are you going? Daniel asked, grabbing my wrist. To hear it from her. The drive. Home felt endless, headlights bleeding into one another as my grip on the steering wheel tightened. My chest burned, but my mind was strangely quiet. When I walked into the apartment, Sophie was curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up casually. You're home early, she said. I dropped my keys on the counter, forcing my voice steady. Who were you with tonight? She blinked, tilting her head. I told you. Work dinner, right? I muttered. The edge calf her fingers froze around her phone. What? I stepped closer. You know the place where you and Ryan hold hands in public? Her breath hitched, but then she recovered instantly, standing up. Daniel showed you, didn't? God, he's always hated me. Don't do that, I said, my voice sharp. Don't make this about him. She crossed her arms tightly. You think one picture proves anything? Maybe I bumped into him. Stop. I raised a hand and my voice cracked. Don't lie to me. Not now. For a moment, silence hung. Between us, finally, she whispered, Ethan. I didn't mean for it to happen. I laughed dryly. Didn't mean for what? Falling into his arms, whispering about me behind my back. Her jaw trembled, but her voice turned defensive. You were never here, always locked in your room, writing. I felt invisible. I stared at her, my chest rising and falling hard. So you made yourself visible to him. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't deny it. She didn't need to. Was it months? I asked softly. She nodded once, barely visible, since June. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe. June, I repeated, my voice low. All this time, Sophie stepped forward carefully. Ethan, I still love you. I stared at her like I didn't recognize her. Don't say that now. I turned toward the bedroom. She followed me quickly. Where are you going? She asked, her voice shaking. I opened the closet and grabbed a duffel bag. I can't stay here. She grabbed my arm. Can fix this? I shook her hand off, my voice rising for the first time. Fix what, Sophie? The lies? The nights you spent with him while I sat here believing in us. Her lip trembled. I made a mistake. No, I cut her off, zipping the bag. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. You made choices. Over and over again. Her shoulders sagged, and she whispered, please don't leave. I paused, looking at her one. Last time, the girl I thought I'd marry, the one I trusted more than anyone, and she'd burned it all. I swallowed hard. Have to. I packed quietly after that. T-shirts, jeans, laptop, notebooks, my whole life stuffed into a bag. Sophie stood in the doorway, wiping her face, whispering my name like it would change my mind. It didn't by the time I was done. The silence between us was louder than any fight we could have had. As I walked past her, she reached for my hand. I pulled away. You're really leaving? She asked, voice cracking. I stopped by the door, keeping my back to her. You already left. I'm just catching up. I grabbed my keys and walked out. I drove aimlessly for an hour before finally parking by the river. The city lights reflected off the dark water, and for the first time all night, the tears came. Quiet, heavy, relentless. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Sophie again. I turned it face down. Another buzz. Ryan this time. Switched the phone off completely. At 3 in the morning, I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. The room smelled like damp carpet, the walls yellowed with time. I tossed my bag onto the bed and collapsed into the chair by the window. I pulled out my laptop, opening my manuscript. The cursor blinked. Waiting, my chest tightened as Sophie's laughter from Daniel's photo replayed in my mind. I whispered to myself, I'm done being small, done being underestimated. That night, I made a promise not to her. Not to Ryan, but to myself. I would rise so high, they'd regret doubting me. I didn't know how, but I would. The next morning, sunlight filtered weakly through the curtains. I stared at the ceiling, my body heavy, but my mind sharper than it had been in months. I grabbed my notebook and started scribbling ideas, raw, unfiltered thoughts about betrayal, heartbreak, survival. Every word burned, but it kept me going by. Noon, I called Daniel. He picked up instantly. You okay?
Oh, no.
I said honestly. But I will be. Where are you? Doesn't matter, I said, staring at the blinking cursor again. I'm done begging people to believe in me. It's time I start believing in myself. He was quiet for a moment before saying softly, Good. That's the Ethan I know. I ended the call and sat back, breathing deeply. Somewhere deep inside, past the wreckage, a small spark flickered alive. The first 3 months were hell. My life shrunk down to a single, suffocating room, a tiny studio apartment with peeling wallpaper, a broken heater, and a mattress that sank in the middle. I lived on instant noodles and bitter coffee, writing until my eyes blurred, deleting everything, and starting again. Most nights, I'd stare at the blinking cursor and whisper, What's the point, Ethan? Who are you fooling? I almost quit. 1 rainy afternoon, Daniel called. You sound like a ghost, he said. Feels accurate, I muttered, leaning against the cold wall. Come out with me tonight. Fresh air, new faces. No, I cut him off. I don't want people. I don't. Want anything? He sighed. You're drowning, man. I know, I whispered. I just don't know how to swim anymore. A week later, Daniel texted me the address of a small writer's workshop downtown. Go, just listen. I almost deleted it, but something in me hesitated. That Saturday, I walked into a cramped bookstore with a squeaky door and shelves that smelled like history. There were maybe 12 people inside, all clutching notebooks like shields at the front. A woman in her early 30s was rearranging papers. Sharp bob haircut, fitted blazer, glasses perched on her nose. She looked like someone who didn't waste time. She introduced herself briskly. Clara Mitchell, literary agent. If you're here, you want to write. If you want to write, you need honesty. I give that for free. Now who's first? No one moved. I stayed quiet too, hiding in the back. Half an hour later, she called for volunteers again, scanning the room like she could smell fear. Her gaze landed on me. You, she said, pointing. Quiet one in the gray hoodie. Got pages? I froze. Yeah, a few. Read them. I'm not ready. She walked over and held out her hand. Then let me. Reluctantly, I passed her my printed manuscript, the first 20 pages I'd been rewriting for weeks. She leaned against the table, flipping through it silently. The room went dead quiet. My chest tightened with every page she turned. Finally, she set it down and looked straight at me. Ethan, she said, reading my name off the title page. You've been bleeding onto the page. I blinked. It is. That bad? Her lips curved into the smallest smirk. It's the opposite. It's raw. It's real. It hurts. That's why it works. A lump formed in my throat. So, you're saying it's not garbage? She tilted her head. Did I say that? No, I said don't stop. You're holding something honest here. That's rare. The workshop. I lingered near the shelves, still stunned. Clara approached me, sliding her bag over her shoulder. You didn't want to come today, did you? She said. Not even a little, I admitted. Then why did you? I hesitated because Daniel wouldn't shut up about it. She smiled faintly. Well, thank him later. I shoved my hands into my hoodie pocket. I was ready to quit. Clara, completely. I thought maybe I'm not cut out for this. She studied me for a moment. Do you want me to lie to you? No, I said quietly. Then listen carefully. She crossed her arms. Most people quit because they're scared. Not because they're bad. You've got pain most writers fake. That's power if you use it. Her words hit harder than I expected. I don't even know where to start. Start small, she said. Set a goal. 5 pages a day. Number. Excuses. I gave a humorless laugh. What if they're terrible? They will be, she said simply, and for the first time. I almost smiled. Back at my apartment, her words echoed in my head. Don't stop. I sat at the rickety desk, opening the laptop. My hands hovered over the keys, hesitating. I whispered, 5 pages. And I started. The sentences were clumsy, the pacing uneven, but I didn't delete them this time. By midnight, I had 6 messy, imperfect pages and a strange, unfamiliar feeling swelling in my chest. Hope 2 weeks later I emailed Clara my draft. My hands shook as I hit send. She called me the next day. Ethan, she said without greeting, you buried the good stuff in chapter 3. Move it to the front and stop over-explaining. Let readers feel. I scribbled notes furiously. Got it and Ethan? Yeah. She hesitated for half a beat. You've got something. Don't waste it. When she hung up, I sat there staring at the phone, heart pounding. For the first time in months, I believed her. I barely slept for weeks. Every night, I sat at my desk, pouring everything onto the page. Heartbreak, betrayal, survival. My survival. The apartment stayed dark except for the soft glow of my laptop screen. Daniel dropped by one night, holding a paper bag. You're still alive, right? Barely, I muttered, stretching my sore wrists. He placed the bag on the counter. Eat something before you pass out on that keyboard. I peeked inside. Chinese takeout? Your favorite, he said, leaning against the doorframe. How many hours straight now? 10, I admitted. I can't stop. He frowned. Ethan, you need rest. I don't have time to rest, I said quietly. This book, it's all I have. Daniel studied me for a moment, then nodded. Fine, but promise me one thing. What? When this thing blows up and it will, don't forget who kept you alive with dumplings. I smirked faintly. Deal. Weeks blurred together. I wrote until dawn, rewrote until my fingers cramped, and rewrote again. Some nights the pain clawed so deep I couldn't breathe, but I turned it into sentences, page after page, then one. Evening, Clara called. Pick up, she said the second I answered, her voice brisk as always. We need to talk. My stomach tightened. Is it bad news? That depends, she said. Do you consider a publishing deal bad? I froze. Wait, what? You're in, she said. Small house, limited run, but it's real. Contracts in your inbox? My voice cracked. Clara. I don't even know what to say. Say you'll finish your edits on time, she deadpanned. I laughed, shaky but real. Done good also, she added. Meet Lena tomorrow, my assistant. She handle your timelines, marketing, and make sure you don't accidentally self-destruct before launch. I frowned. Sounds bossy. You'll thank me later, she said and hung up the next day. I met Lena at Clara's office, a cramped but surprisingly cozy space filled with manuscripts. Coffee mugs and sticky notes everywhere. Lena was seated by the window, typing. Furiously, mid-20s, messy ponytail. Oversized sweater, she looked like someone who lived on caffeine and deadlines. She glanced up. Ethan Brooks? Yeah, I said. And you must be the bossy assistant. She raised an eyebrow. Only when authors miss deadlines.
Great,
I muttered. We're going to get along fine. She slid a folder across the desk. Is your schedule? Edits, marketing deadlines, social promos, book signings. Don't panic. I stared at the list. This looks like a death sentence. Lena smiled faintly. Relax. I'll walk you through everything. One step at a time. 2 months later, the book launched. I told myself not to expect anything. No big sales, no applause. I thought maybe a handful of strangers would read it, maybe leave a review if I was lucky. Daniel called the night before release. You ready for tomorrow? He asked. No, I said honestly. You should be proud, man. You turned pain into something real. I'm terrified, I admitted. He chuckled. Good means it matters. Launch day came and went. Quietly. No interviews, no crowds, no fireworks. My book sat on a small corner shelf in one bookstore downtown. I visited it once, just to see it there. Then 3 days later, Clara called at midnight. Ethan, she said without preamble, check your email now. I blinked half asleep. What? Why do it? I opened my inbox and froze. A subject line screamed back at me, the brutally honest. Masterpiece. You need to read a popular literary blog had featured my book front page. Glowing review, 5 stars. I whispered, holy shit. Told you, Clara said, sounding smug for the first time ever. You're going viral? Viral? No, that's insane. Refresh your sales dashboard. It did. Numbers climbed so fast my screen lagged. My heart thudded in. My chest. This can't be real, I said. It's very real, she replied. Breathe and get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be chaos. The next morning, Lena called. Congratulations, bestseller, she said casually. I choked. Bestseller? You're trending on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Bookstores are restocking. We're fielding interview requests. I sat there in silence, gripping my phone. I don't even know how to process this. Start by not fainting, she teased. Then maybe buy a better chair. You're going to be writing sequels. I laughed, shaky, but genuine. Guess I owe you a coffee. You owe me 10, she said. Later that night, Daniel showed up with champagne. To Ethan Brooks, he said, raising the bottle. From Heartbreak to bestseller, I shook my head, dazed. It doesn't feel real. It is, he said, clinking his glass against mine. You survived, man, and now you're winning. I stared at the open laptop on my desk, the same one I'd cried over, bled over, nearly given up on, for the first time since Sophie, since Ryan, since everything fell apart. I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt unstoppable. Success came like a storm I wasn't ready for. Interviews, podcasts, book panels, and invitations I never imagined I'd get. Some mornings, I woke up half convinced it was all a dream. One night, Daniel showed up at my apartment carrying pizza. You know you're famous now, right? He said, kicking the door shut behind him. I snorted, hardly. He dropped the box on the table. Ethan, you were on the Today Show this morning. I rolled my eyes. A 5-minute Zoom call doesn't make me famous. Right, he said, grabbing a slice. Tell that to the 3 fan emails in your inbox asking you to sign there. 4 heads, I groaned, sinking into the couch. I should have written under a fake name. I'd still get caught, he teased. Your tragic hero face is too recognizable. I threw a cushion at him. Shut up. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I grabbed it without thinking, then froze. Sophie, a single text. Can we talk? My chest tightened. Instantly, Daniel noticed my face and frowned. Who's that? I turned the screen toward him. Delete it, he said flatly. I hesitated. Should I? Yes, he said without pause. No good ever comes from opening that door again. I locked the phone and shoved it aside. You're right. Daniel studied me for a moment. You okay? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants answers. Another part doesn't care anymore. He leaned forward. Don't give her the satisfaction of knowing you still think about it. I nodded, though a part of me still burned. 2 days later, my phone lit up again. This time, Ryan. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. Daniel called me the next morning. So, Ryan tried reaching you? I muttered. I blocked him. Good, he said. Because you don't need to hear it from him, but his career's tanking. I blinked. What? The company downsized. He got caught up in the layoffs. And Sophie. She left him a month ago. I went silent. Daniel's voice softened. Ethan, you okay? I leaned back against my chair, staring at the ceiling. It's surreal. I spent months drowning in what they did, and now it's like karma's just taking its time. It usually does, he said. Quiet, slow, but it hits. I exhaled shakily. I thought this would feel better. Give it time, he replied. Later that week, I met Lena at a cafe near Clara's office. She had 2 coffees and her laptop already open when I arrived. You're late, she said without looking up. I'm 3 minutes early, I protested, sliding into the chair. You're late by my schedule, she replied, sipping her drink. I smirked. Do you treat all your authors like this? Only the successful ones, she said, finally glancing at me. Speaking of which, your panel next week is fully booked. You're sharing the stage with 2 big names. Try not to faint. Great, I muttered. Public speaking, my favorite nightmare. Lena laughed softly. Relax, I'll be there. Something about the way she said it, calm, steady, certain, grounded me. She noticed me staring. What? Nothing, I said quickly. Just thanks for putting up with me. She raised an eyebrow. You're not as unbearable as you think. High praise coming from you, I teased. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. Don't. Get used to it. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at Sophie's unread text still sitting at the top of my phone. My fingers hovered over the screen before I set it down again. I called Daniel instead. Don't do it, said the second he picked up. I wasn't going to, I lied. You're terrible at lying. I rubbed my temples. Why do I even want to hear her out? After everything? Because you're human, he said simply. But you're not the same guy anymore. You don't need closure. You've already won. I stayed quiet for a long moment. Yeah, maybe you're right. Of course I am, he said. Now get some sleep. We've got another interview at 10. A week later, after a long day of meetings, Lena stopped by my apartment with a stack of notes. I brought the updated promo schedule, she said, dropping the folder on my desk. You work too much. You write too much, she shot back. Fair, I admitted. Want coffee? She hesitated, then nodded. Sure. As we sat on the couch, she glanced at my laptop. New project? Trying to start one, I said, running a hand through my hair. Feels different this time. It's like I'm not writing from pain anymore. That's good, she said softly. Means you're healing. I looked at her then, realizing how much she'd quietly been there, managing schedules, fixing crises, showing up when I didn't ask. Lena, I said, I don't say this enough, but I trust you. Her expression softened. Good, she said, because I'm not going anywhere. That night, for the first time since Sophie's betrayal, I slept without waking up from nightmares. I didn't reply to her text. I didn't need to. The buzzing inside the bookstore was deafening, cameras flashing, people talking, shelves packed, and a line stretching all the way to the entrance. My palms were damp, but my chest felt strangely light. Daniel clapped me on the back.
I look
At you, man. Rockstar author? Rockstar? I laughed nervously. More like terrified rookie. He grinned. Relax. Sign some books. Pretend you know what you're doing. Lena appeared from the side holding a clipboard and a coffee. Stop panicking. Smile. The publisher's here, the press is here, and half of New York is watching you. Wow, I muttered. No pressure. She smirked. Exactly. Clara leaned closer, lowering her voice. Breathe, Ethan. You earned this. Every second of it. Her words anchored me. I nodded, took my seat at the signing table, and glanced at the sea of faces. Fans were holding my book, some clutching pens, others phones ready for selfies. It was surreal. The first reader stepped forward, a young woman shaking as she handed me her copy. I just wanted to say, she stammered, your book saved me. My throat tightened. Thank you, I said softly, signing her name. I'm glad it reached you. Dozens followed, smiles, hugs, small confessions whispered across the table. Every story felt personal, raw. Somewhere between signatures and photographs, I stopped thinking about my nerves. Daniel nudged me during a quick pause. You're killing it, man. I grinned. Feels unreal. And then I froze. halfway down. The line, "I saw her, Sophie." She stood holding a copy of my book, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. My breath caught. The noise of the room faded to static. My hand tightened around my pen until my knuckles hurt. Daniel followed my gaze, his jaw tensing instantly. "Don't," he muttered under his breath. "Don't you dare break now." I swallowed hard. "I wasn't expecting this." Lena noticed too. "Want me to pull her out of the line?" she whispered. I shook my head quickly. "No, let her stay." Minutes passed before she reached me. Each second felt longer than the last. Finally, Sophie stepped forward, her hands trembling as she placed my book on the table.
Daddy.
Her voice cracked. "Ethan," she whispered. I'm sorry." I stared at her, my chest burning, my throat locked. Memories crashed into me all at once. The betrayal, the nights I couldn't breathe, the wreckage she left behind. But all I said was, "Hi, Sophie." She blinked rapidly, as if expecting anger, but finding none. "You look different," she managed. "Life does that," I replied quietly. Her tears spilled faster. "I read your book every word." "I didn't know how much I don't," I interrupted softly. "Please, not here." She pressed her lips together, nodding. Around us, cameras clicked, fans whispered, but it felt like the world had stopped. "I ruined everything," she whispered, almost inaudible. I stared at her for a long moment. "Yeah," I said finally, "you did." Her face crumpled, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm not the same person anymore, Sophie," I continued. "I had to break to rebuild, and I did." She wiped at her face, trying to smile, but it faltered. "I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you." Something inside me loosened, but I didn't let it show. I forced a small, polite smile, picked up my pen, and signed her book carefully. For Sophie, I wrote, "Thanks for teaching me to rise." I slid the book back across the table without meeting her eyes. She stared at the inscription, her lips trembling. "Goodbye, Ethan," she whispered. "Goodbye, Sophie," said softly. And just like that, she walked away. Daniel crouched beside me instantly. "You okay?" I exhaled slowly, setting the pen down for a second. Yeah, I'm okay." Lena placed a quiet hand on my shoulder. That was intense. I forced a faint laugh. "That's one word for it." "You didn't have to sign her book," Daniel muttered. "I know," I said, gripping the pen again. "But I needed to." Line continued, and I kept signing one reader after another. My hand ached, but my heart felt strangely steady, like I'd been carrying a weight for years and had finally set it down an hour later. When the last fan left, Lena handed me a bottle of water. "You survived," she said with a small smile. "Barely," I joked, taking a sip. Daniel leaned against the wall. "Thought you'd explode when you saw her. So did I admitted. "But I didn't." Claire walked over, watching me closely. "You handled that with grace," she said quietly.
At.
"Growth, Ethan. Feels like something else," I murmured. "Like closure." Later, outside the bookstore, the cool evening air hit my face, and I finally breathed freely. Daniel walked beside me while Lena lingered a few steps ahead, scrolling on her phone. "You know she's going to reach out again," Daniel warned. "Maybe," I said, shoving my hands into my pockets, "but I won't answer." "Sure about that?" I stopped walking, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "Positive." Lena glanced back at me, tilting her head. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, smiling faintly. For the first time in a long time, I am. That night, alone in my apartment, I placed Sophie's signed book on the shelf with the others, stared at the words I'd written for her, and let out a long, shaky breath. It didn't hurt anymore, not the way it used to. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt free. The signing was over, but my hands still trembled faintly as I stacked the last few books on the table. My chest felt tight, like my body hadn't caught up with what just happened. I sensed her before I saw her. Ethan. Sophie's voice came softly from behind me. I turned slowly. She stood there clutching her signed copy, her face blotchy from crying. The room was mostly empty now, just a few staff packing up, Lena talking quietly with Daniel near the door. I took a slow breath. "Sophie, you shouldn't be here. I need to explain," she whispered, stepping closer. "Please give me 5 minutes." I shook my head gently. "There's nothing left to explain," her voice cracked. "You hate me? I can see it." I met her tearful gaze, steady and calm. "No, Sophie. That's the thing. I don't hate you." She blinked, confused. "Then why?" "Because I'm not the man you left," I said quietly. "And you're not the woman I loved." Her lips parted, trembling. But no words came. "I thought hearing you apologize would fix something inside me," I continued. "But there's nothing to fix." "That chapter's over." Sophie shook her head, tears streaming again. I ruined us, Ethan. I was stupid, selfish. You were," I said softly, cutting her off. "And I was blind. That's on me. But we're not those people anymore." She reached for my hand instinctively, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said gently. "Not again." Her breath hitched, and for a moment I saw the guilt on her face, like a weight she couldn't carry. "You've changed," she whispered. "I had to," I said. "I wouldn't have survived if I didn't." She bit her lip hard, trying to steady herself. "I read your book, Ethan. Every page felt like punishment. Like you were bleeding onto paper and I caused every word." I looked at her, my voice soft but firm. "You didn't cause my success, Sophie. I did. I built this life without you." Her tears fell harder. "I wish I could undo everything." I shook my head slowly. "I don't. Not anymore." That made her stop, her breath faltering. "You don't?" "No," I said simply. "Because if you hadn't broken me, I wouldn't be standing here. I wouldn't have found myself. And for that, I'm grateful." She stared at me wide-eyed, like my words cut deeper than anger ever could. "I'm sorry." "Ethan," she whispered again, weaker this time. "I know," I said softly. "But forgiveness doesn't mean reunion." She opened her mouth, closed. It then finally nodded, defeated. I should go." "Yeah," I whispered. "You should." I turned away before I saw her leave. My hands were steady now. My chest felt lighter. Lena appeared beside me quietly, her voice low. "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than I thought I'd be." Daniel joined us, arms crossed, glancing toward the door where Sophie had disappeared. "Want me to make sure?" "She doesn't follow you out?" "No need," I said. "That's done." He studied me for a second, then nodded. "Good. You deserve peace, man." Lena smiled faintly. "You handled that beautifully." I gave a small laugh. "Felt more like survival than beauty." "Sometimes," she said softly, "survival is the most beautiful thing." Outside, the night air hit me like a wave, cool, crisp, alive. I closed my eyes and let the city noise wash over me. Cars honking, voices buzzing, laughter spilling. From nearby cafes, Daniel stuffed his hands into his pockets. "So, how does it feel?" I opened my eyes and smiled faintly. "Light? Light?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah," I said. "Not because I won anything. Not because she saw me succeed, but because I survived it." I survived her. Lena glanced over at me, her expression soft. "That's what healing looks like." "Feels strange," I admitted, carrying a weight for years and suddenly realizing it's gone. Daniel smirked. "Guess all that therapy paid off?" I chuckled under my breath. "Guess so." Walked in silence for a few moments, the hum of the city around us. "Do you think she'll reach out again?" Lena asked carefully. "Maybe," I said, "but I won't answer. You sure?" Daniel pressed. I stopped walking, turning to face them both. "I'm done looking backward. Ryan, Sophie, all of it. It's over." Daniel's lips curved into a grin. "That's the Ethan I like." Lena nudged my shoulder gently. "What now?" Bestseller tours? TV interviews? More late-night coffee and edits? I smiled faintly. All of it. But for me this time, not to prove anything to anyone. She studied me for a moment and nodded approvingly. Good, you deserve that. Later that night, I stood in my apartment, staring at the shelf where Sophie's signed book sat between dozens of others. The words I'd written for her stared back at me. For Sophie, thanks for teaching me to rise.